only backpacking show where the hosts get on a plane, fly about the world, travel. I'm Alan, and I'm here with one of the greatest travels of all time and my best friend. It's the ever mobile Adam.
We got a wicked one in store for you today, mate. I'm excited to be back. I'm going to tell you what I've been up to, some very interesting, very exciting and very expensive plans ahead. And then we're going to hear from a listener in the second section of the show with the Hostel Common Room. And then, of course, Tales of a Trip, where we hear a recording from one of you lovely guys.
Double listener-led content. I love it. All that stuff going on at tripologypodcast.com. Very interesting indeed. Adam, how are you, mate? You're looking every bit the same age as last time I saw you. How has it been going on?
You wait till next week where I have a shave. Jesus Christ. I wish I could grow a beard. I can't grow a beard. Do you think at the age of 36 I'm maybe past it and I've got to just forget about that and deal with what I've got?
Well, a lot of the evidence that I've seen suggests that as soon as your beard gets to about the length that it is now, you shave it off. So if you maybe stop running a sharp blade across your face, you might have more success.
Yeah. No, but you haven't got any tips. I mean, someone like you who's got a full chin of beard.
Yeah, I simply don't shave it. That is my tip.
Between the beard tips and the toenail infection cutting tips, if you don't tune in for either of those, I mean, I don't know why you're listening.
Yeah, no, but there is a point where you'll notice if you refrain from shaving, you will eventually grow a beard.
Patchy or otherwise. This week, mate, I've been bloody busy. I have been looking and am on the verge of buying a van.
Wow. Is it a Honda Odyssey, the most famous van used for vanning in New Zealand?
No, but it has got an equally cool name. It's called the Mazda Bongo.
A Mazda Bongo, okay. The Odyssey, an amazing word that brings to mind venture and travel and going across the high seas. The bongo, of course, one of the funniest drums.
I mean, it looks like a small little camper van, and we're looking at one at the minute, hopefully taking it for an inspection this week just to make sure there's nothing weird and wonderful going on. It is a lot of money, of course, but that might mean that in the future, in the near future, and also in the mid-future, that we can go out on very long trips and live the van life. Because I think if there's ever a country where it should be travelled that way, it's probably New Zealand, isn't it?
Yeah, a lot of the backpackers in New Zealand, of course, buy a cheap van, put a mattress in the back of it, get in that van. You can wild camp all over the country. It's very, very easy. It's often done. And do you know a couple of people who've had their vans robbed whilst they're in New Zealand? So that's something to be aware of.
Not by Kiwis, I'm sure. And not by sheep, and that's basically 90% of the people on the South Island. So
yeah, so you've got a 10% chance of having a van robbed, is what you're saying.
That's actually pretty high.
Yeah.
So I have got a little travel conundrum to ask you about, and I try not to get too sort of philosophical or abstract, but it is so much more expensive to buy a van. And I don't know if you know the difference between a van that's self-contained and one that isn't, but basically there's rules in place. The sort of reserves and local councils and parks, national parks, and all these sort of governing bodies that try to keep New Zealand squeaky clean, which we appreciate. It's a good thing overall. What it means is that if your van's not self-contained, i.e. you don't have a certain amount of water capacity in there in the form of bottles for each individual people, you can't manage your waste well. I think it's got to be like for 3 days and 24 litres per person and all this sort of stuff. You have to have toilets that are housed inside your van. It basically means you need to be able to go to the toilet and manage your waste for 3 days in order to be classed as self-contained, something along those lines. Otherwise, you're not able to freedom camp, and you can get fines of up to sort of $800 if you get caught by park rangers.
Right. Well, that's interesting because people, of course, have very, very different schedules when it comes to waste production.
Yeah, I don't think that's the main concern, but I get what you're saying.
I would like to be monitored for 3 days, see what it is that I produce on average, and then judge me based on that information going forward. Well, you're amazing, sir. You've not shit in 3 days, so you actually don't need to have a bucket on board. You're still self-contained.
These things are of course expensive, but what it also means is there's this massive gulf between vans that have just been converted and you've got sort of a very basic bed in the back, and then vans that have been converted and they're slightly more elaborate and they've got a toilet on board and they've been given the green or blue stamp as being self-contained, but they're like sometimes twice as expensive. Now, I do understand the benefit of being self-contained because it means you can freedom camp in some designated areas. You don't necessarily need to go and pay for a campsite. Of course, that it doesn't make it sort of redundant having a camper van if you sleep in a campsite, but it does obviously restrict you somewhat. However, the price difference is so massive. I'm looking at this as, is it the dream that I'm chasing and therefore having to fork out extra money? Or should I go for the sensible option, which is, of course, the converted car, which is in some cases half the price? And you can still get them self-contained, and they might be 5, 6, 7, 8,000, depending on the condition. The vans, you're talking like 12, 14, 17 in some cases. But the romantic idea I had in my head of travelling New Zealand, it was in a van. It wasn't in a car.
Yeah, I mean, I have done the whole van life thing once before. In Canada, I got a car.
Oh, Chica.
Chica was her name. Took all the seats out the back, put some blankets down, a sort of makeshift mattress. I actually put some like CrossFit mats down as blankets on top of that, and sleeping bag in there, and had a little space heater that didn't work, and a few little things. And I used to go out there quite often to the national park, sleep under the stars, open the doors, just chill. And the longest I ever spent in there continuously was 7 days.
Mm-hmm. Long enough.
I have to tell you, on no occasion during that 7 days did I think, oh, I wish I could piss and shit aboard the car.
Well, if you only go once every 3 or 4 days, you'd only had to tackle that problem once. So,
No, contrary to mythology, I go to the toilet like an ordinary person, but at no point did I think, do you know what would really enhance this Canadian road trip? The ability to defecate and mixturate without ever leaving the comfort of my vehicle. So I would say yes, you're chasing an illusion, a dream, 2 words, self-contained, attached by a sexy little hyphen that make you feel on top of the world. But in actual fact, you don't need it, mate. Just get a nice cheap runner that you can sleep inside and go to a cafe.
You do touch on a good point, because the guy that might be selling us the van, when he was showing us the toilet and the waste management system, we asked him, oh, how often do you use the toilet? He was like, never, literally never. I've never used it. And no one who has a self-contained van with a toilet on board ever uses it.
So it's just for the legislation so that you can park anywhere.
Well, and it means that you do have the ability to manage your waste on board, I suppose. So there are genuine reasons.
But the only reason you wanted that is so that you can freedom camp,
Yes.
right? It's just so that you don't get stopped by the cops.
Yeah, because there are designated areas. It's just many, many areas across New Zealand where you can freedom camp, and it just makes it much more easy. You can pull up by the side of the road in some places, some small towns, and just park your car, and you're allowed to stay there, because if they catch you sleeping in your car and you're not self-contained, they will whack a fine on your bonnet.
Why not just get the cheapest version and then get 23 litres or whatever it is worth of bucket and put it in the back seat?
Oh, I don't know if they have to be special. I don't know enough about it, really.
And if he says, sir, that doesn't look like a very comfortable toilet, you say, wait there, I've got a little performance to show you, because it actually is a comfortable toilet.
If you knew some of the places I've done a shit, officer.
You'll be surprised. A little bit of eye contact whilst doing a demonstration of your toilet and the cops go running.
It'll be me who's charging you $800 to see this. But no, mate, I do think it's an interesting point in that, please email in if you've got something to share, tripologypodcast@gmail.com, because sometimes we have this idea in our head of what we want a trip to be. And for me, driving around New Zealand in a van seems so much more romantic. Is what I kind of thought about over the last 10 years. The way that I would travel this beautiful country was in a camper van, living the van life.
Yeah.
If that then all of a sudden is reduced to driving around in a converted car that's a bit ugly and probably too small, I don't know if I'll be regretting that.
See, I've never had this fixation. I've never had this fantasy. Like, I come across it all the time, particularly in the music world. I think people are really guilty for this, where people are like, oh, but my dream instrument is a guitar crafted in the USA, steeped in the history. It uses a special glue and all that thing. I think it's so much cooler to have an absolute beater that you find in a charity shop with bits chipped off it that you just get and like make it your own with what you play on it. Same with the car. I think it's way cooler to get the fucking thing that's all broken and rusty and you made it work and you like had it and created an affinity with it and had this adventure with it than getting the spick and span thing where like, oh, you can actually drink your own wee once it's gone through our special filtration system. It's ever so comfortable. Fuck that car, man. That's for posh people, rich people, people who want comfort. That's not us. I reckon just get the rusty old bag, forget the romanticization of it, just make it work.
No, I mean, the van is one of these beaten up, bashed up storytelling.
Doesn't sound like it, mate. Sounds like an absolute shitmobile.
Anyway, stay tuned because we're going to have it sent into a garage for an inspection, and they check all the gubbins, all the engine, and all that other stuff that mechanics talk about.
Oh, you've already bought it?
No, I haven't bought it, but if it passes its pre-purchase inspection, then probably we will buy it. And it's got a little bit of rust. It looks like it can tell a few stories. It's been around the block. It's certainly got more than 300,000 kilometres.
But you're opting ultimately for the more expensive version that has the self-contained thing because of the idea of it.
And because it's more roomy, it is obviously worse for the environment and guzzles gas, which is an issue. But it has got 2 surfboards on the roof, which I thought you'd appreciate.
It comes with the surfboards?
Comes with way too much stuff. I mean, there's no way we're going to need all of the stuff it comes with, but it's included in the price because the guy needs to leave the country sharpish.
I'm on board with the surfboards. That's quite cool.
Yeah. So, mate, get down here. We'll go and rip a few waves or whatever you surfers say.
Yeah, we say that. We say, let's go and rip some gnarly curls, baby.
But yeah, exciting stuff. I mean, you know me, I like a drive. I like living in a van. And I like driving around New Zealand. So it's a win-win-win.
Stay tuned, listeners. We'll hear all about Adam's driving, surfing, defecating, mixturating, van life adventures in subsequent weeks of Tripology Podcast.
Many of us go travelling to find ourselves, but what does that really mean?
Yeah, a lot of us go travelling searching for meaning, and while you certainly can find some answers climbing up a mountain or snorkeling in a beautiful reef, sometimes we need some help to even ask the right questions. That's why we've teamed up with BetterHelp in a paid partnership that offers you the chance to try therapy.
You know what it's like, Alan. Moving countries, time zones, jumping around from hostel to hostel, having no schedule. These are reasons travellers often rule out therapy. I've been using the service for 6 months and I've travelled a lot during that time. Organising therapy sessions using the online platform couldn't be easier. I've been working with my therapist on some deep-rooted issues and I'm now in a much happier place.
Yeah, starting therapy with BetterHelp literally couldn't be easier. You simply fill out a questionnaire and you'll be matched with a therapist as soon as possible. It's also easy to switch therapists at any time with no extra cost. BetterHelp strives to pair you with a therapist that's right for you.
With thousands of positive reviews, us included, BetterHelp is a platform you can trust. Click the link in the description or go to betterhelp.com/Tripology Podcast and get 10% off your first month of therapy.
We are absolutely nothing on this show if we're not a place, a forum, a community in which everyone can discuss all of our ideas, ask questions, help one another as we traverse this great big beautiful marble of an earth. And sometimes people go to tripologypodcast.com. There's a form on there, the Hostel Common Room questionnaire, where they can type in all sorts of questions that come to mind, like, oh, how do you clean your bag once it falls in a river? Or what kind of size bucket should I defecate in whilst I'm travelling around New Zealand? That sort of thing. One such listener wrote into the Hostel Common Room recently with ever such a good question, and we're going to listen to it now in the Hostel Common Room.
Hostel Common Room. How many countries you been to, mate?
Yes, mate, the Hostel Common Room. We do love to hear from you, so get those emails in. And this week, we have got an email from our good friend Miles. Thanks very much for writing in, mate. He says, hello, Alan and Adam. I have a couple of questions for you both, which you may relate to. It's been about 1.5 years since I got back from backpacking South America, and I've thought about travel every day since. I can imagine, mate. I think you both can relate to feeling trapped in your home country and being surrounded by people who have completely different life goals than yourself. Every day I think about leaving and discovering adventure on the road, pushing myself and connecting with others who want the same. I think I need to save money for another year before I'll have enough to take off for good. Well, good luck with that. I have a great low-stress job now that allows me to save a solid amount of money each month. The longer I stay, the more I can extend my upcoming trip, but I'm going a little crazy. Waiting. When do you make the call to just say you've saved enough and just go? And do you have any tips or suggestions for getting through long period of working to save for travel? A couple of things I've discovered that help me feel better: researching and planning travel in various areas around the world, listening to music that reminds me of my travels, or a podcast. Wink, wink. Going on smaller adventures in my home country, usually trekking in the mountains, listening to Tripology. Of course, you rolled it in at the end there. Why did I ever lose faith? I'd love
listening to music.
No, you're totally right, Miles. I'd love to hear your thoughts. So, Alan, mate, what do you think about that?
Oh, Miles, what? I mean, you've touched on perhaps the most ubiquitous travel kind of dilemma, problem, blue period that all of us go through.
I would agree.
And that's like, you've gone on this great big adventure. You've changed irreparably, irreversibly as a person. You've seen all the possibilities, and then you've returned home out of necessity, financial necessity, obligation necessity. Lots of different things can happen. And then you're hit with this feeling, and we've all gone through this. There is not a single traveller who enjoyed travelling that this didn't happen to. I'm sure there's a subcategory of people that go home and they're like, oh, thank fucking God. But for everyone else who actually loves travel, we've all been through this experience. And it's a really, really challenging thing to get through. And Miles has already hinted on some of the things that I would normally recommend: going on adventures in your home country, trying to find the beauty in the place that you do live. Like, go mountaineering. If you like climbing, go climbing. If you like music, go play with some musicians. All sorts of things that you can do. But fundamentally, it's really tough, Miles, my friend, because part of it is you start to feel yourself getting dragged in to obligations and things that force you further away from the life that you know that you enjoyed most of all. This was the dilemma I found myself in. I was like, I've got it. I understand that travel is the greatest, highest minded thing that I love more than anything else. And then as I was in the UK for a little bit, it was like, okay, but you need to get some money. So let's prioritize getting some money. Okay, now you've got to get a certain amount of lease to rent a place while you're doing that. Okay, obligation. How are you going to get around? Maybe you get a car. Okay, obligation. Now you've got a car. Okay, now how long do I need to save for? Okay, let's say this amount of time. Whenever I save it up, obligations. Then in my case, there was a pandemic. So it was like, okay, now you have to stay for the pandemic. There's like things that happen that suck you into a life, and it starts to feel like travel becomes this distant, unattainable thing. And you're like, oh, this is how it happens. This is how people go traveling, and they never go traveling again. Maybe you find someone who you deeply love and want to spend time with. Okay, now what do I do? There's lots of problems. It's really, really difficult to get around.
You definitely don't want to be one of those people that says, yeah, and then life got in the way or something like that. But I think it's probably twofold. I am actually quite binary about this sort of stuff. Now, I accepted a very long time ago that it was completely possible to use countries using working holiday visas and that sort of stuff. But equally, you can go back to the UK or wherever you're from, I suppose, and just use it as a trampoline. You buckle down for a year or two, earn a load of money, save, live a simple life, a modest life, save that money, and then you can go off again. And if you just do that on repeat, if that's what you choose to do, that's totally a viable way to live. And I do wish that was communicated to the younger generation. That's part of the reason why we're doing this. That is absolutely an option for you if you want to live that way. But then the other side of this is trying to keep everything at arm's length so that you don't make any commitments that then stop you going away in the future. And I don't think that there's any doubt that, you know, being motivated or being excited enough or being interested enough in whatever it is you're going to do, that's never going to dampen or you're never going to lose interest in that way. So just keep what you're doing keep doing what you're doing in that sense. But I think it's just about realising the moment you're in, knowing fully that you are going on to bigger things, to this next big adventure, and just try and get yourself in the headspace that the day will come sooner than you think. I promise you it will. And the people that you should be around, the travel community, the people like us, will be there to greet you when you arrive.
I think there's also a thing to deeply understand, and it's not just about travel, it's about life in general, is that everything has an order of priorities. And right now, if sounds like travel is very, very high on your priorities. And if that is the case, you should do everything in your power to make sure that you address it with the utmost urgency. And then there will be a time as you age and get older where travel potentially starts to deprioritize in favor of other things. Like this might be a time where you want to start a business or start a family, or you might need to be there for loved ones. There's lots of things that might overtake travel in the hierarchy of your priority. And you should address those with the same urgency that you should address travel now. One of the most tragic things, I think, are people who prioritize something deeply as a value or as something they would like to achieve, but then all the things that sit underneath that thing in their hierarchy of prioritization ultimately get addressed first because they're easier, quicker, they just like feel more immediate. And they end up leaving the big things at the top of their list that they know they're always going to get round to. They end up just completely overlooking them because they're that big major thing. You don't want to do that. You don't want to do that with anything. You don't want to do that with the relationship, with the family, with the loved ones, with the money, or with travel. So I think just have it in your mind, like know that travel is ultimately what you want right now, and keep that as your guiding light, as your beacon. It's very, very important to have a beacon as you move through life. And if travel is yours, just hold it there and know that it is that, and the time will fly by.
Yeah, I saw a quote the other day that's somewhat appropriate to this situation, maybe Miles's in particular. But the quote could be applied to many people in our position, I suppose. And it says this: "We're unable to live the life of our dreams because we're too busy living our fears." And I think that's probably appropriate to a lot of people in sort of Western society that would love to be doing the sort of stuff that we're talking about here.
Yeah, I mean, how many times have we heard like, "Oh, I'd love to do what you guys do, but I've just got to get A, B, C, D, and E sorted, and then later on I'll do the travel again." And I think if it's really what you want, now is the time. I also think you need probably less than you think you do. I see a lot of people get held up thinking like, "Oh, when I get this unattainable amount of money, then I can go traveling in the way that I want." I've always been an advocate of like, just get what you can get realistically in a finite period of time. Set the time rather than the amount, and say, look, I've got 6 months to really work hard, and whatever I have there, I'm going to go traveling with it. I think that's better than saying like, "Oh, well, I want to be traveling for this length of time, and in order to travel for this length of time with this budget, I need $10,000 US." And it's just like, no, just save as hard as you can for the period of time you have, and then use that money to travel. That's what you should do.
Yes. Keep watching your YouTube videos. Keep listening to Tripology. Keep on saving. Stay motivated. I know you will, mate. Go out there and get it. Thanks ever so much for writing in, Miles. We really appreciate it, mate.
Love you lots, brother. Let us know how you get on. But right now, we've got another listener that needs some attention. They've gone to tripologypodcast.com/tales of a trip, and they've sent in their greatest travel story. 3 minutes where they describe, the most beautiful, wondrous, effervescent, adventurous moment of their traveling career. They want to tell us all about it. Let's listen to a listener right now.
So, my travel story starts at about 19 years of age. Me and the boys went to Thailand to see what it had in store for us. And we did find Khao San Road eventually. Tried a couple balloons, got very intoxicated, and decided to go watch a ping pong show. At the ping pong show, this older gentleman invited us to come with him to see something even better than that. And we were kind of in the mood for that and decided to follow him. Eventually, my two friends kind of felt like it wasn't a good idea. I don't know why I continued to follow this guy.
A game of
And we
tennis.
turned the corner, and this guy has this Tokyo Drift style whip. Japanese supercar, lower to the floor. I don't know why I got in, but after about 10 minutes of drive, and I repeat, this is me alone at this point, I start getting nervous, and I'm like, "Where are we going?" And he just doesn't want to answer. And another 10 minutes passed, and Bangkok's downtown lights start disappearing in the rear view mirror. And I start getting really concerned until we eventually pull up to hotel, and this guy invites me in. I follow him, and I feel really uncomfortable at this point. Not surprised at all to find that we are in. It's not a strip club. It's just really a bordel, and yeah, there's about 30 women. My 19-year-old precious soul does not comprehend this, but they're all numbered, and I get to choose one. And I don't know how to get out of this situation, really. So I come up with a brilliant idea. I just tell this guy that they're all ugly and that I don't like a single one of them. He doesn't take it badly, thankfully, but he does suggest to go to a different place. And I don't really have a choice at this point because I'm getting escorted out by 2 security guards back to his car. We get in, drive another 5 to 10 minutes, which feels like an eternity, and pull up to this Soviet-style unlit block, maybe an old hotel. There was certainly like a construction site situation. It's at night, so it's dark. I can't see it. We go down in the garage, and I think I'm dying at this point. But turns out it's just a more luxurious place. And yeah, eventually they make me pay 300 USD. I decide that it's very sketchy and I don't feel comfortable, and I leave. But scary story for sure.
Wow. Okay. My friend, I empathize with the feeling, that horrible sense of dread that comes when you're hurtling somewhere with someone and you think, how the heck did I make several decisions that have led to this eventuality? How has it happened that now, through a series of seemingly inoffensive, like, yeah, sure, okay, nice, I'm now like leaving the city, leaving my friends, and I'm in this potentially really, really dangerous situation. Yeah, it's a feeling of impending dread, isn't it, Adam?
Yeah, because you either know this is going to hurt, i.e. I'm potentially going to get beaten up here, or it's going to be very expensive, or both. So I don't know if this is like an inner feeling that we might have. It's that gut instinct where you think, even though I know I shouldn't do this, it is going to be an amazing story.
Yeah.
Am I going to get out of this scot-free? Because do you know what it does? It reminds me of a story. I would definitely have ended up doing something like that, especially when I was 19. There's just no way that I wouldn't have done exactly what he did. But there was a time when I was in Russia when I got invited to a strip club by 2 Russian police officers who said that they would pay for everything.
Yeah, I remember this, yeah.
And every bone in my body was saying, don't do it. But I thought to myself, you're only a few weeks into your trip and you said to yourself that you were going to say yes to everything. And now you're already saying no. It probably would have been fine. But if it hadn't, I would have had to maybe tell my mum what went on there. And if you haven't really got an answer for that, if she's going, well, how did you end up in that situation? Oh, we got in his Japanese supercar and he drove us. It wasn't even the first building we went to. Oh, right. Okay.
It's so often the good traveller's mentality of say yes to everything. Now, I think you're better at this than me in some ways. I think that you are very, very good at embracing the moments when to say yes. I'll give an example. When we were in Pakistan and that van driver said to us, oh, you've missed the bus, come and stay with me and my family at my house. If I had been on my own, I would absolutely categorically, I'm telling you now, it would have been an impossibility that I would say yes to that.
Right, wow.
I just would flat out refuse. Mm-hmm. Now, that's absolutely kept me away from some positive experience whilst I've travelled solo. Absolutely, irrefutably, undeniably, I accept it, I acknowledge it. I've also been in some dangerous situations whilst I've been travelling. I understand the reality of the world. I understand that difficult situations can arise, and when they do arise, they arise very, very quickly. I will always exercise caution whilst I'm traveling. So I likely wouldn't have got into that car and been in that difficult situation that the listener was in. You would have, but I think you also have vastly positive interactions that I often miss out on.
Yeah, I also like ping-pong more than you do.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't know what a ping-pong show is in Thailand, it's not for us to tell you to look it up, and I advise probably that you don't.
But it's no surprise those stories. I mean, they do happen, and they do happen in places like Bangkok, and they can be a bit of fun. They can be lighthearted, but $300. I mean, that's a bit of a sting in the tail, isn't it?
It is, but it's not the worst. I mean, take $300 in your health and your safety. The lesson of that story is just like, it's only $300. In 5 years' time, you don't miss $300. But you do learn the lesson of like, oh, that was actually a real upheaval. Like I ended up in a brothel with a stranger forking out money.
So do you think that there's another side to this, that maybe if that story just played out and the things that happen in brothels happened, I mean, what's the $300 for in this story? Is it to just try and get out of there scot-free, don't beat me up, and they would have asked for $300 irrespective of what went on?
That was the impression I got from the message, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So as soon as you get in the car, it's costing you $300, no matter what happens.
I think so, yeah. And I don't know whether that was sort of the plan and the assistance of the person that was there, or whether that was just the situation that once you got to that brothel, the way that this listener saw out of the situation was just to hand over the money, maybe pretended to the gentleman he was with, like, oh, I'm going off here, and then just made his way home. I'm not sure. But I think if spending money can make you feel safe and just get you out of a situation, then better to do that.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And maybe let this be the takeaway. I've got a few friends and people I've met traveling who have been beaten up or mugged or whatever in Thailand. And it usually involves them getting into a car with a stranger.
Yeah, right. So this question for you. If I hadn't been there in Pakistan, you would have had no hesitation to go to that driver's house and just have dinner with his family and all that stuff. It wouldn't have occurred to you that I might not be safe.
It would have done, definitely. It's not like it wouldn't have occurred to me that I could have been putting myself at risk, but I'm pretty sure I still would have gone.
I mean, he was absolutely lovely, and it was an amazing experience. If you've not heard that episode, they were the kindest, most lovely people, and there was no reason to suspect it might have been dangerous. But it's just one of those scenarios where...
Apart from the AK-47.
Well, yeah, there was a lot of AKs around, right? But it's one of those situations where if you met someone 15 minutes ago and then you've committed to staying at their house in a place that you have no idea of the geography, you've just arrived there at night, you're obligated to stay there until the bus comes the next day, you don't know anything about anything, you're at a risk. You're at risk just by definition of the situation you're in.
Yeah. And I think you've got to learn when to put your trust in people, and probably more than 9 times out of 10 it works very well. I think, but generally people are awesome.
Oh, I mean, it's maybe 999 times out of 1,000, but the problem is that the one time, like if that person had said, oh, you guys aren't leaving here, there's nothing that we can do.
No, okay, well, let me ask you this question in return. Do you think that the feeling that this listener was feeling, the gut instinct feeling of getting in the car and wondering where they were going on the outskirts of Bangkok, do you think that's the same feeling, visceral feeling, as you felt when the driver said to us, why don't you come back to mine if you need to, you can stay with my family?
No, because I didn't even have that feeling, because I've developed over a decade of travel a sense of caution that prevents me from getting in situations where that feeling has to arise. I felt comfortable in that situation because you were there.
Right, gotcha.
And that's not because I think like Adam can defend us if there's any issue. It's just because, okay, we can pass out together and communicate whether we feel comfortable and safe. And I know that I'm making an objective decision based on reality because I'm speaking to my best friend whose opinion I respect. There was also times, remember when those two people tried to pick us up and you said, I don't really have a good feeling about this. And I said immediately, if you don't have a good feeling, we're not getting in the car.
Yeah.
Because I think you've got to trust each other's instincts in situations like that. And just 2 instincts are better than 1 instinct. And I've learned over the years to trust my instincts.
Yeah, it is a vital part of travelling. Maybe some people are naturally better at it than others, but it's certainly something you kind of get. But the thing I'm a little bit worried about, mate, just while we're spitballing here, is maybe I'm more risk averse now I'm getting older, and maybe I'm also less likely to be in those situations or have opportunities like that as time goes by. So, I mean, the whole time you do have those opportunities, listeners, get stuck in, but make sure it's not when you get that gut feeling like something's about to go wrong.
But it's a feeling out process though, isn't it, as well? Like you can never begrudge a 19-year-old in Thailand having a good time being offered the opportunity to get in a supercar and drive off on an adventure like that. We've all done stuff like that had the potential to be dangerous, and it turns out he wasn't really in danger in the end. He got out of it, right? So I think there's a multifaceted approach that you have to incorporate into your life when it comes to this.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we've told a number of the stories on this show about when that's happened to us, and maybe left some others out of the broadcast, but and made their way into the Patreon section. So yeah, really, thanks so much for recording the voice message. It's a wicked story, and yeah, I can't wait to hear more from you guys. Keep them coming in.
Yep, and if you want to send us a message just like that listener, you just go to tripologypodcast.com/tales of a trip. But speaking of tales and trip and sending in messages, we've got a couple of crazy messages that will go after the episode in a section we like to call the Lost and Found. We've got bonus tales. For example, I'm going to talk about trying to catch this mouse that's creeping around my house. So if you want to hear that, all you've got to do is go to patreon.com/tripologypodcast.
We'll see you there. Bye.
Bye.